Where this project started is essentially we were putting an in-ground swimming pool for our family, and you need to house the equipment somewhere on the property to operate the swimming pool. And we thought, hey, listen, we're in the container business, we have a modification division, why don't we look at the possibility of trying to design some kind of a pool house that can hold the equipment that we need to do anyways, and at the same time potentially construct something that other people in the marketplace might be interested in purchasing. So basically this is a 40-foot high cube container, so 40 feet long, 9'6" high. We did a little bit of work from a design perspective, but nothing super fancy. So this is a 12-foot patio door. Obviously you can go larger, you can go smaller depending on what you want. And then we have this oversized window here, just because of the way that we have the layout internally. There's going to be a bedroom down at this side, down at this end of the container. And so we just thought, kind of looking underneath this tree, which is quite nice. And then just at the very far end, a second window, just mainly to let a little bit of natural light in. And then we've got an oversized deck off the front, which when we do some shooting in the spring, probably will be a little bit more visible. But why don't we just take a quick look inside so you can kind of see the progress so far. Take it. At this stage of the process, we've basically got obviously the windows cut, the openings cut, windows installed. All of the framing has been done. All of the electrical has been run internally. Pot lights have been installed, ready for spray foam, which is the next part of the process. So all of the steel that you see on the walls that's visible, all of this will eventually be covered with spray foam for insulation. So we'll be doing the walls and the roof. I think probably learning through this process, we probably would have insulated the underside of the container. We didn't do that. I wish we should have, but we didn't. So we're having to compensate for that by using a special kind of thin insulation on the floor before we put the actual flooring material down. So with a 9'6" high ceiling, we've got, a significant amount of height to work with. So having a very, very thin insulating material on the floor really isn't going to impact anything too much. Drywall's been installed on the other side of this wall. So we'll kind of take a quick look inside on the other side of this wall. Going to be an oversized TV here. This will be drywalled. Then the TV will get mounted afterwards. And ultimately, this is just going to become a really cool hangout space for our kids. We have 3 kids. They have lots of friends. We have family that comes over. So, this really is an area for them to hang out. There'll be a bedroom at the far end, but our plan is to keep the entire container open for the most part. We may play around with it, the further we get into the project, but at this stage, the idea is to keep it fully open. So kind of a bed at the far end, living space in the middle, and then just kind of a hangout area here. You can see down at the far end, this has been roughed in already. So there's going to be a ductless heating and air conditioning unit that will get mounted above this window. So for heating and cooling, we'll basically have a really simple, straightforward unit that will go above this window that will provide more than enough heating and cooling depending on the temperature. So ultimately, the idea behind containers is that you're avoiding all of the traditional challenges and timeframes and cost associated with traditional buildings. So really easy, really fun. The time for construction will vary. Ours has taken a little bit longer just because we've had a bunch of other projects that we've been working on. So this has kind of, been delayed a little bit, but ultimately we're now kind of putting a bit more energy and effort behind it. So I think we're probably maybe 2 to 3 weeks away from seeing it finished. We've got some family that's arriving for Christmas, so we're hoping to have it ready for them. So. mean, it's a little bit difficult to kind of imagine it now, but when we were constructing the swimming pool, the entire backyard was basically dug up. It was just a mess. But it was a great opportunity to be able to dig the trenching for the conduit where the container needed to go to. I think one of the biggest challenges was just physically getting the container into the location where it currently is. We're in a fairly kind of downtown area and certainly not a lot of space to work with. So our options were very limited in terms of how to physically get the container in. That might be different, like from one installation to the next, but in our particular instance, we had to crane the container basically over top of our house and into position. The company that we worked with was absolutely unbelievable. So essentially the container was craned over top of the house. There is a wire that runs basically from our home to a main post. So we had to contact the local power authority to have that removed. So that main cable line basically came down, and then the container they sort of lifted it over. It kind of hovered over at that time, which was just a big hole in the ground. And then it was actually pretty simple and straightforward. So once they had the positioning of where they needed it to go, it was kind of hovering in this location here. And then they basically just swung the crane arm to the left, and the container just kind of came underneath this tree, super easy. And then it just got placed on top of the concrete pad. So we were within, the concrete base underneath this is probably not more than maybe 4 to 6 inches more than what it actually needs to be in terms of the underside of the container itself. And the guys who did the lift were absolutely unbelievable. So I think that you could probably get away with using a boom truck or something smaller. Each location is going to be a little bit different in terms of accessibility and any extra equipment that might be needed to physically get it to where it needs to go. I think at the end of the day, there's going to be different costs involved depending on that level of difficulty. Ours, I think, was a very high level of difficulty, but potentially not unfamiliar to what some people are going to be faced with as far as getting these in. The benefit is that it is a one-piece unit. So when it gets dropped in, you can cut the openings off-site if you want to. So with regards to the doors, the windows, everything, all of that can be done off-site. So there is literally very little that has to happen when it's put in place. But the idea is that we can get to a point where we can kind of ship these to a customer's location and have, probably 75% of the work already done at our factory by our fabrication team, ship it to the customer's location, and then in theory, they can either have some local contractors do some of the finishing work, or if it's a local, location to where one of the markets that we serve, we can send one of our team to be able to do that. So. That's one of the interesting, opportunities with these types of products is that there isn't a right or a wrong application. So I think that with COVID, obviously, there's a lot more people choosing to work from home, and their homes may not always be set up in a way that's accommodating for them to be able to work from home. So this particular unit is obviously the largest that we do, but because of the fact that it is a shipping container, you need to think of it almost like a Lego piece. So it can be reduced in size to whatever space it is that you have to work with. And ultimately, from a design perspective, the sky's the limit. We get people sending us all sorts of photographs from Pinterest and Instagram, and which are fantastic resources. Some of the things that people see are a little bit less realistic than what happens in kind of real life. But at the end of the day, there isn't a right or a wrong way on how to do this. I think in theory, what we've done is we've tried to do something that would mirror, a large segment of the population in terms of what people are going to like or want. For more basic projects, it might just be a standard man door. It might be a smaller window. They may choose to put a window along the back to allow for lighting. So, that's the nice thing about this is that, ideally we'd like to get to a point where we can kind of almost have a website where you can kind of drag and click and you can kind of place, a door or a window in a particular location of where you want it to go, and at least get a little bit of an idea of what that looks like. So, our team of designers have qualifications with CAD drawings. We can show you some fairly sophisticated drawings, and we've been working with a couple of other companies that even have a higher level of technology than we do with respect to seeing some of the kind of interior finish and exterior finishing with landscaping and things of that nature. So I think we don't want to kind of overcomplicate the process. I think the whole point of a shipping container is that it's simple. We're taking something that has been meant to be used for something different and we're repurposing it for an application that it wasn't originally intended for. The application for containers is very, very wide ranging, whether it be a residential application like what we're using it for, or a commercial application as an office or a living space. It could be a camp at a mine or some type of a kind of, oil and gas, sort of type environment. So this project has been particularly fun just because it's actually at my personal home. But obviously the intent is for us to be able to find customers who are interested in purchasing something similar. We're going to have all sorts of content from the process of the container arriving to the container being delivered to its current location, all sorts of progress reports and photographs through the process. So anyways, thanks for watching. Appreciate it. Hopefully you'll follow along with us on our journey, not only just for this particular container, but hopefully for any more that we continue to build for customers going forward.